Hello everyone and welcome to today's workshop on managing exam stress. I'm Hannah, I'm a mental health practitioner and I work for the NHS, but I also work in student services at college. So we're just going to have a little think today about what exam stress is and what we can do to manage it. But first things first, remember it's normal to worry before an exam. The challenge is how to manage the worry so it works for you rather than against you. Because who isn't stressed if they have to take an exam? It's rarely a pleasant experience, but today we're just going to have a think about how it can be managed in a more helpful way so that stress doesn't overwhelm you. So what do we think about exam stress? So we've got some little bubbles here with different thoughts. So the first one is, I'm not going to get my predicted grades. Next one is, I have so much revision to do, I keep putting it off. Then we've got, I find it hard to retain all the information. Then we've got, I'm so stressed going into an exam that I can't remember anything. I have no motivation and find it really hard to study. So have a little think, ponder about what those thoughts are. See if you relate to any of those. Do you think about any of those before you have an exam? Maybe you don't, they're not how you feel at all. But does anyone feel comfortable sharing how it feels for them when they're thinking about exam stress? So in that final bubble, we've got a question mark. So are there any more thoughts that people have got when it comes to exam stress? So what is stress? So there's no agreed upon medical definition of stress, and professionals remain undecided about whether it's a cause of problems or a result. But stress is the degree to which you feel overwhelmed or unable to cope as a result of pressures that are unmanageable. It's our body's response to pressures from a situation or life event. And exams are definitely one of those. Most people will feel quite stressed if they know they've got an exam coming up. So stress is a fear response, and our thoughts, bodily sensations and behaviour are all intertwined. So there's also performance anxiety. And performance anxiety is experienced more often by those in occupations that involve presenting to an audience, such as actors, musicians, politicians and students. So you're certainly not alone in feeling anxious about college work or exam stress. Because when you know that you've got to perform well and there's more pressure to do so, it can be more stressful for you. So we've got a little video now about what happens in our body when we become stressed. And why do we feel the way we do? So let's have a look at the video to see what's going on.
Exams are stressful, but stress doesn't have to take over your life. If we understand the science of how it works, we can make it work for us. When faced with a potentially stressful situation, angry parents, driving tests, or yes, exams, the danger sensor in our brains, the amygdala, is activated. This alerts the nearby hypothalamus, sending a long-range message via the pituitary gland to the adrenal glands, which secrete the hormones adrenaline and cortisol into our body. Adrenaline increases our blood flow, speeding up our reflexes and sharpening our senses, and cortisol releases glucose, giving our body vital extra energy. This response, known as fight or flight, is our body's way of preparing us to tackle big challenges. But when stress levels get too intense, they can trigger negative symptoms, like difficulty focusing, tension headaches, nausea, and disturbed sleep. The good news is, scientists are working hard to figure out how we can keep our stress response balanced and healthy. Some cultures have used slow breathing to aid relaxation for centuries, and now scientists think they know why. Inhale, now exhale slowly. When we slowly exhale, the signals that control our heart rate are altered, making our heart beat more slowly, and a reduced heart rate helps us relax. Another trick is exercise. When we exercise, our bodies release feel-good chemicals that work in the same way as painkillers do, lifting our mood, reducing anxiety, and helping us to sleep. And sleep is especially important before exams because it helps reduce stress even more. Another area that scientists are investigating is socializing. Believe it or not, locking yourself away in your room for weeks on end is not good exam preparation. When revising, we should make some time to hang out with friends and family, as socialising is a scientifically proven relaxation booster. Scientists have been looking at our close cousins, chimpanzees, for evidence. When they tested chimps' urine, they found that levels of stress hormones were much lower when they'd been spending time with their chimp friends than when they'd been alone. And it seems the same is true for us. So, as your exams get closer, remember, a little bit of stress is no bad thing. Just follow our simple tips and you can take control, getting the right balance that works for you.
Okay, so that's kind of informed us about how stress creates a physiological response, and some of the things we can do about that include breathing, socializing and exercising. And different things are going to work for different people because we're affected by different things. Okay, so stress in itself is not actually a bad thing. So a bit of stress can be good, as it can be really helpful when thinking about getting us motivated, keeping us focused and driving us to do things. But what we don't want is to have too much stress, because this can then in turn make us feel quite unwell, feel overwhelmed, tired and distressed. As we can see here in this diagram here, what we want is the optimum peak performance in the middle, a little bit of stress. So look at this image now of the body. Have a think about where you might feel stress in your body. Where do you feel those things? Is it in your head, in your hands, in your stomach? Do you get fidgety legs? What are those types of feelings that you get when you're stressed? Are there some that are quite common in the group? Or are there some that maybe aren't so common? So what we've got here are some common signs and symptoms. So here are some of the things that you can look for if you're experiencing stress, or to see if maybe you are experiencing stress. Are there any here that perhaps you wouldn't have realised could be a sign of stress? As sometimes if we look at some of these symptoms, they could have been mistaken for just different issues, or perhaps an isolated incident that's unconnected to stress. But it's important to look for where patterns are emerging. So yeah, so under physical symptoms, we've got headaches, fatigue, stomach complaints, skin conditions. Are there any there that seem common? Any not so common? Then the mental common signs and symptoms, we've got worrying, nightmares, negativity, indecisiveness. Perhaps indecisiveness is one that might have surprised people. Then emotional, we've got irritability, low mood, alienation, frustration and anger. Behavioural, we've got loss of appetite, insomnia, increased smoking and drinking. But also every person has a different tolerance for stress and a different way of responding to it. So they're not all going to be the same, and they're not going to be the same reaction to particular situations. So you might have different things depending on the event that's causing stress, and not every event is going to cause stress. Okay, so what can we do to manage our stressful thoughts? So it's helpful to start to challenge our unhelpful thoughts about what might happen in the future. So what you can do is think about a worst case scenario, the best case scenario, and then something in between. So what we've got here as a situation is sitting an exam. And so your worst case scenario in your head might be, I won't know any of the questions, I'll panic, I'll fail the exam, I won't be able to get into uni, I won't get a good job, I'll have to do the whole year again. And what you want to do is challenge that thought. So then you'd come up with a best case scenario, which is I will get every question right, it will be a breeze, I'll pass with distinction, and I'll fly through to the next level. And then to bring a more balanced view, go for something in the middle, which is, I might not know all the answers, but I have revised. All I can do is my best. And if I do badly, it's not the end of the world. I can resit at a later time. Okay, so now as a group, I'd like you to think of another particular situation that might cause stress, and then work out the worst case scenario, the best case scenario, and something in the middle which is more manageable, a more balanced view. So just take a couple of minutes as a group for that. And another thing you can do when you know that you've got an exam ahead is to be prepared and to feel as prepared as you can be. Because there's only so much you can do, but if you feel like you've put in as much effort as you can, then you're going to feel prepared, you're going to feel more confident going in, and that means you're putting less pressure on yourself overall. It might feel less daunting if you prepare and you think ahead about how you're going to prepare. But that's not always easy. So can you think of barriers to your revision? What's getting in the way? What's making it harder? So as a group, have a think about the barriers to your revision. So here are some of the ones that I've got. It might be feeling like you've left it too late. It might be that you hate revising, poor organisation, confusing revision notes, nowhere suitable to revise, not enough time, other things to do, just thinking you can't do it, so sort of fear of failure, cramming or doing too much revision so you feel overwhelmed, not knowing how to revise. And now we've got some ideas about how you might manage these. So if you feel like you've left it too late, it's still a good idea to try and revise, because any moment where you start ahead of the time is still time that you've put effort into doing your revision. But try and do it as soon as possible. So act now, set a day and a time to get started, and use an alarm to remind you. So thinking ahead. Hating revision. Try different strategies and materials. Make it fun, revise with friends, maybe get some nice stationery, revise in short bursts. Sometimes that's more manageable, because if you know that you've only got to revise for, say, 15 minutes, half an hour, it doesn't feel as difficult as thinking about sitting down for 4 hours. And actually, sometimes once you're then sat down, thinking that it's for 15 minutes or half an hour, it's actually much easier to then stay there for longer. But also do have breaks and do something nice in between, so you know there's always something nice to look forward to. Poor organisation, can have study timetables and lists, having reminders on your phone. There's also lots of resources online about how you can create timetables and schedules. Confusing revision notes. So use revision books, speak to your tutors, ask a friend, see what they're doing, see if you can get different notes and summaries from other people. And watch online videos, make it a bit more interesting if you're finding it difficult to just read your notes or go through past work. If there's nowhere to revise, find a small area that can be used as a small study space, such as a library. Ask the college if there's somewhere available for you to revise. If you feel like there's not enough time, again, try and make a timetable to plan your week so you know that you can at least get some revision in. Other things to do. So if there are other things to do, how important are those things? You're going to need to prioritise and see which things need to come first. Also, what's in it for you? Is it going to be more benefit to do these other things, or is it more benefit to you to do your revision? If you think you can't do it, reflect on positives, on your strengths, past achievements. I think the past achievements bit is really important, thinking about what you've already done to get here. If you've already done those things to be here in this moment, then you can keep going. Also thinking about what it is that worked last time, that can be helpful. So cramming or too much revision, start earlier and use effective planning. So again, scheduling your time and just starting as soon as you can. not knowing how to revise. So try out different methods. They might be taught at college, it might be things you can find out online, on YouTube. Find things that suit you. Think about what your learning style is. And here we have some of the unhelpful thinking styles. Does anyone think that they might have any of these thinking styles? So we've got all or nothing thinking, sometimes called black and white thinking, thinking that if you're not perfect, then you've failed. It has to be done right or not at all. What about overgeneralizing? Seeing a pattern based upon a single event, or being overly broad in the conclusions we draw. So everything's always rubbish. Nothing good ever happens. Are any of these starting to sound familiar? Got mental filters, only paying attention to certain types of evidence. So noticing our failures, but not seeing our successes. And again, I think that's really important that you look back at what you've achieved so far, because it is so easy to focus on the things that we've done badly or where we're not happy with our performance. Disqualifying the positive, so discounting the good things that have happened or that you've done for some reason or another. So, oh, well, that doesn't count. Jumping to conclusions. So two key types of jumping to conclusions. We've got mind reading, so imagining we know what others are thinking, or fortune telling, predicting the future. So we might be thinking, oh, well, there's no point bothering because this is going to happen. Magnification, catastrophizing, and minimization. So blowing things out of proportion is catastrophizing, or inappropriately shrinking something to make it seem less important. So, oh, it doesn't even matter. Oh, these exams don't matter. Oh, I can do this instead. We've got emotional reasoning, assuming that because we feel a certain way, that we think that must be true. Such as, I feel embarrassed, so I must be an idiot. So then we've also got using critical words like should, must, or ought can make us feel guilty or like we've already failed. If we apply shoulds to other people, the result is often frustration. Labeling. So assigning labels to ourselves and other people. I'm a loser, I'm completely useless, they're such an idiot. Then we've got personalization. Blaming yourself or taking responsibility for something that wasn't completely your fault, or blaming other people for something that was your fault. So thinking about these thinking styles, they're all going to make things much harder when it comes to exam time and trying to motivate ourselves to do our revision. So does anyone feel like they do any of these things? But if you know that you have one of these thinking styles, then you know that you can challenge it because you know it's not helpful to you. And another thing is pressure. So our goals will be different to those of others, and it can be hard to keep motivated when we measure our successes against those of others. So it's really important that you praise yourself for the small wins, not just the big ones. So that could be that you've come into college on time, that you've done the term, that you've handed in a piece of work, that you're going to bed on time, and then thinking about exam time, that maybe you did 10 minutes today, because then you know that that's 10 minutes more than you could have done. So one of the things that can be helpful when you're trying to do your revision and you're thinking about planning ahead for your exams is to think about what learning style you find helpful. So we've got 4 different types here. We've got visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and reading or writing. And everyone learns in a different way. So different people are going to learn best through these different styles. But if you know which one's best for you, then you can gear your revision in that style so that you'll retain more of the information for your exam. Okay, so we've got a little video now to think about what your learning style is. You can then implement that when it comes to doing your revision.
Hi, Elise here from Make Your Mind Up. In this next video, we're going to have a look at different learning styles with a quiz to work out what kind of learner you are and study tips for each learning style. Not all of us learn in the same way, and this isn't really something we're taught at school. We learn, but we're never taught how to learn. We just kind of open the textbook and hope through some kind of wizardry it goes into our brain. If we know our learning style, it means we can make learning and memorizing new information much quicker and easier for ourselves. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video as I'll be revealing my top tip for making sure you never forget things. Okay, let's get to the quiz. So, question 1. You're playing Mario Kart and you want to learn how to get a speed boost at the beginning of the race. Do you A, watch a video online, B, figure it out yourself by trying to do it, or C, ask someone to explain how to do it? Question 2. You've just arrived in a new town you've never been to before. How would you find the local supermarket? A, find and follow a map, B, keep walking and figure it out using landmarks to remember where you are, or C, ask someone to give you directions. And question number 3. When you're not sure how to spell a word, what are you most likely to do? A, write it down to see if it looks right, B, trace the letters in the air, finger spelling, or C, spell it out loud to see if it sounds right. Question 4. You make a new friend. How would you remember their phone number? A, write it down, B, practice dialing the numbers, or C, keep saying the phone number out loud. Question 5, halfway there. What do you find most distracting when you're trying to study? A, people walking past you, B, an uncomfortable chair, or C, loud noises? Question 6. When you meet someone new, what are you most likely to remember about them? A, their face, B, what you did, or C, their name? Question 7. If you won a game, which of these 3 prizes would you choose? A poster, B, a game or some kind of sports ball, or C, a music CD or an MP3 download? Question 8. You are about to purchase a new mobile phone. Other than price, what would most influence your decision? A, reading reviews online, B, trying or testing it, or C, a salesperson or friend telling you about its features? Question 9. Which would you rather go to with a group of friends? A, a movie, B, an amusement park, or C, a concert? And lastly, question 10. You're doing a presentation. How do you learn it? A, flashcards, B, practice the presentation doing and saying it out loud, or C, record yourself and listen to it over and over. Now take a moment to count up how many A, Bs and Cs you got. If you got mostly A's, this means you're a visual learner, someone that prefers learning by seeing. If you got mostly B's, you're a kinesthetic learner who prefers learning through doing things. And if you got mostly C's, you're an audio learner who prefers learning through hearing. Okay, great. So what does this mean? Well, from the quiz, we'll recognise our answers are what we enjoy doing. And what we enjoy doing tells us what kind of learner we are. If we're enjoying whilst we're learning, we're playing to our brain's strengths, giving our brain the best chance of success in keeping focused and motivated. So here's some techniques for the 3 learning styles. If you're a visual learner, definitely use colour coding when writing your notes. Watch videos and online tutorials. Use mind maps, diagrams or pictures of models, and sketches to explain information. A top tip here is to sit at the front of the class to minimise any visual distractions around. If you're a kinesthetic learner, focus on techniques that involve movement and physically doing something. So participate in any group activities, go on field trips. Say if you're learning about animals, you might physically go and visit a zoo. Build models. A friend of mine actually in psychology made a great model of the brain and each section inside it. Create a game or activity. This is actually a great one for learning tenses in languages. And walk around as you're reading over or reciting your notes. If you're an audio learner, focus on techniques that enable you to hear the information. So read out loud, record yourself saying the information and listen to it back. Use group discussions or create rhymes and songs. Again, a great one for languages or lists. Listen to podcasts or instructions. My top tip is to study in a quiet place and avoid lots of distracting noises around you. Now, here's my top tip for making sure you never forget things. Use more than one learning style.
So now you can have a think about perhaps which learning style you are, and now you can gear some of your revision to that style. So how do I prepare? So from that video, have a think about knowing your study style. Create a timetable. Revise what you don't know. There's no point spending lots of time on the things that you do know, because it's the information that you don't know that you're going to need to hold on to. Make sure you schedule in your breaks, as that way you can come back to what you're doing with more focus and should have less procrastination. Have study dates, meet with people, make it a social event. That way you don't necessarily need to choose between revision and seeing your friends, because they'll have exams too. Ask questions. If there are things that you don't know, ask your tutors, ask the people in your class. But if you don't ask questions, you're not going to know that information. So if structuring your time is something that you find difficult, then one thing that you can do is habit stacking. So habit stacking is where you identify one of your current habits and tag on a new habit onto it. So an example of this could be, after I pour my cup of coffee in the morning, I will go through a revision card. After I take off my shoes, I will immediately look at my coursework. After I've had my cereal, I will say one thing I'm grateful for that happened today. After I get into bed at night, I will read my notes from that day. After I put on my running shoes, I will text a friend or family member where I'm running and how long it will take. So you can use habit stacking with any kind of behaviour you're trying to change or add on, whether that be physical activity, or that you want to have more hobbies, or be it that you want to revise for your exams. And habit stacking can just make things easier, as a new behaviour just becomes part of something that you're already doing. Okay. So compensating is also something to think about, as when you've got exams and you're stressed, you can sometimes feel overwhelmed. And what you want is a sense of balance in your life. So in an ideal world, what we'd want is this image here, where we've got a good balance between our college life, our home life, and our fun activities or downtime. But unfortunately, the world doesn't always work like that, and stress can be inevitable. So it might be that you're having a very stressful time at college, which could mean you're giving less time to home life or to your fun activities. Or it might be that you have a lot going on at home, which means that you can give less of your time and energy to college or to your fun activities there. But if there are areas of stress in your life, it's almost always the activities and downtime that take a hit and not the other areas. But when we're stressed, it's so important to protect the time that you allocate to yourself and having some downtime. And make sure it is scheduled in, and that you don't confuse procrastination with having fun or having downtime. So if we use this illustration in the presentation, if one circle is getting bigger, then you want to compensate so the other circles get bigger too, to restore some balance. And it's okay to name that you need to reserve time specifically for yourself, as in order to have good mental health, you're going to need that. It can be hard to fight the culture around giving all of your energy till you're exhausted and overwhelmed, but ultimately your health does come first. So downtime. When you feel stressed, it's helpful to engage in a distraction activity. So one thing that you enjoy and gives you pleasure. So we've got some ideas here. So doing something creative, such as drawing, painting, baking, crafts, listening to music, having a particularly relaxing playlist perhaps, socialising, spending time in nature, reading a book, doing something physical, such as going for a run or a walk, playing football, doing a relaxing activity, so maybe some mindfulness, looking at particular videos on YouTube to keep calm, and meditations, having a nice bath, and doing breathing exercises. So just as a group, think about what you already do for your downtime. What is it that you enjoy and that keeps you relaxed? Are there some commonalities between you? Do you often do the same thing? Or are there some differences? Perhaps someone suggested something you've never even considered. And yes, so one of the things we've spoken about just there was breathing activities. You can find videos such as this, the Calm Breathe Bubble, on YouTube, which is very short. This clip is only 30 seconds long, but it's just a way for you to refocus, and if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, to just bring your breathing back and to gain an awareness so you can keep calm and to not feel so stressed and so overwhelmed, and that you can continue to face your revision and be calm ahead of your exams. Also, if you're struggling to sleep during times of stress, you could do one of these breathe bubbles before you go to bed. So as a group, I'm going to play the clip and just try and do it along with what's happening on the screen. Just breathing in and out. And just a reminder that every effort is a good effort. So no matter how small the effort you're putting in, it's still effort, it's still you trying. Okay, so what we've got here are some contacts. These are the contact details for the different wellbeing services in college. And if you'd like to know more, then do look on Moodle or talk to your tutors. There's also an NHS mental health crisis line for adults and for people under 18. And there's a number of apps and online platforms where you can go to get support 24/7. So do sign up to things like Togetherall or Kooth. And do remember that other people will be feeling stressed too during the exam period. So do share your feelings with others, as you don't need to feel alone. You can also look at the link below for Young Minds, as they have a section on their website specifically about exam stress. Thank you.